My non-existent chat with him.
Well, your email thread with him.
Hashtag best buddies.
Have you noticed that more and more people are talking about open source versus free software? I don't know if it's. I mean, maybe.
I noticed that.
Yeah, it's happening more and more. I don't know if maybe it's related to your interview or potential interview and discussion you guys had, or if you just had really good timing. But I have seen a couple of conversations, and then there was just that interview with Linus reminiscing about the days before open source, and I don't know. It seems like all of a sudden it just became a topic of conversation.
The free software
RMS at this
term
point
has always been stupid.
RMS at this point is just a dinosaur, an outdated dinosaur that just is no longer relevant. He just isn't relevant anymore.
Oh, man!
That is the bottom line here.
And the value of this is negative.
There was a time 30 years ago.
Yeah.
More than 30 years ago, when he was
the hero we needed,
pioneer,
right?
and,
yeah.
Yeah, and even 10 years ago, he still was saying some stuff that turned out to be very prophetic.
You're just not allowed to talk like this. You're not allowed to say these things. Don't you understand? You're not.
You should keep this to your own podcast and at late night / afternoon / morning Linux.
GNU/Linux.
Late night GNU /Linux. Yeah.
Hey, Rotten, I got a Plasma desktop challenge for you. So I just did the latest slew of updates. I mean, I don't know. I was probably like a week behind. And when I rebooted, all I have now is a black desktop. I can't right-click on the desktop. My clock widget is gone, and my background is gone, and my icons are gone. What do you suppose that is? You get an idea, like something I could start or reload to get my desktop back?
It's a graphics driver thing.
Oh, is there anything I can do than just wait?
There is something, I just don't remember what it is because I did it like a year ago.
That's it. I'm switching to Slax, not Slackware, but Slax. I'm switching to Slax.
But there is.
Do you have a moment to talk about XFCE?
Fuck, damn it!
The Church of Neon does not need. You don't need to be invaded.
Yeah, I tell you. I am about ready to have a conversation about XFCE because fuck, I'm burning through everything else. No, I'm not. I'm still totally happy with Plasma.
Flying through Ds.
That just is a problem that cropped up today. Luckily, I don't actually use my desktop for anything, so it doesn't actually impact me because all of my other applications are fine, but it was weird.
Yeah, that
is
weird.
The first little problem I've had with Plasma since the switchback. Well, I don't know what that no is doing, but we should probably... Yeah.
I want to update you on my MacBook on Linux thing.
Yeah, tell me about it. Tell me about your MacBook on Linux thing. It sounds dirty when you say it like that. Sounds dirty, Ben.
I'm about ready to rip my hair out like hell. I ain't shitting you, dude. It's driving me freaking bally. I'm not having a good experience.
So you have, let's see, if I recall correctly, you have like a 2014 or 13?
2013, late 15-ish.
Well, what's the problem? Yeah, that's fine. You're set.
Well, here's the thing. The dual graphics aren't there, and the power management is shit.
Yeah, yes, that is all true. Yeah.
And I've looked at Bumblebee. I've looked at different options.
No, what you got to do is embrace the one video card lifestyle. You got to. Your best bet is you can modify your bootloader somehow. I've never done it. I just run with the NVIDIA, but you can somehow choose at boot time Intel or NVIDIA, and you just gotta, you gotta embrace the single video card lifestyle and pretend like there's only one card in there.
Yeah, and right now the only one that's working is the NVIDIA, and that's not such a big deal. It's just ironic that that's how it is. But hey, if that's how it is, that's how it is. And, I guess I'll just have to work with it. Now, another thing, I have GNOME on it right now in Arch, and that's not such a huge thing. It's just there's so many blatant extensions you got to use. And I tried KDE, but configuring that is like, what the hell?
It gets easier with time. I had that same reaction when I first started playing with Plasma, but these days I kind of like all the configuration options that are there. But it's not always the easiest to get started.
But, yeah, and I don't know what the crap I'm doing with KDE, and I asked Noah to give me some pointers last week on his podcast. He didn't give me anything.
Huh.
That's
I think there's
sometimes
there's no replacement for just sitting there hitting your head against the wall, and then at some point it clicks, or you've solved the same problem enough times that you it becomes second nature.
I mean, It's just I've hit my head against the wall so many times I got a headache.
Yeah, that's fair. And then frequent breaks.
Yeah, I don't know what to do.
Honestly, Ben, it makes me when I think about like I'm thinking about reloading my MacBook, and then I also just think, God, maybe if I just could scrape the funds together, I should just buy a used ThinkPad.
Oh,
tell you the truth.
That'd be nice to have around the studio.
Can I suggest a new desktop challenge? Yeah, it's all been about Plasma for the last like 3-4 weeks, right? And you're gonna kill me for saying this, right? But
you're already dead.
XFCE, right? Seriously,
do the XFCE challenge.
Everyone tried out XFCE, right? Like went back to it and checked it out and lived with it for a week or so, and then reported back on what's wrong with it. What is wrong with it? It's old, it's stable, okay, but seriously, try it out, use it, everyone.
I've used it, Joe. The only downside is it has poor as hell IDPI support.
Well, and it's so fiddly. It's so fiddly, like managing the panels.
Very good dual monitor.
Yeah, the whole thing. I don't know, boy. The problem is, Joe. It's like. I feel like I could say the opposite. I could say if you just lived in Plasma for 3 months and then try to go back to XFCE, it'd be like trying to go back to the 90s.
Exactly.
It's like, what did we suffer through for all these years? Why did we fight the good fight? Why did we put up with all these bugs and all these transitions and all these toolkits and all these application reboots not to have modern computers?
Right, you're right, Chris. I mean, if you went to KD 5.4, whatever.
Yeah.
You'd be going, and then you go back to XFCE, that plain gray, whatever. Even if you themed it to hell, put a conky on there, a dock, whatever you want to put on there, you still would be feeling like, okay, this looks like Windows from '95 or something.
I mean, there's a practicalness to it
Joe,
that I
just
grok.
check out i3.
No, there is a practicalness to it. Like,
I do like i3. There's nothing wrong with it, but it doesn't have the greatest high DPI support unless you do a shitload of shrinking on it.
So this is the XFCE perspective, and this is why, even though I give Joe a hard time, I get it because I worked at a place when I was in high school, and I came back, and I'm almost positive it may have been 9 years, but I think it was almost 10 years on the nose. I came back. And I shit you not, one of the same Dell workstations that we set up with Debian and XFCE to administer the servers was still in the IT department.
Yeah, sure.
It had been dist upgraded a couple of times. It was still running XFCE. It was still that original install on that same original hardware. It had just been upgraded, and it was the identical XFCE desktop it was when I left. The terminal, everything was exactly the same.
Stable as a rock.
And you look at that and you go, holy shit, that is 10 years of consistency. I doubt it would hold up anymore, but like at that time when I saw that, this was many years ago now, I was blown away by that. I was like, damn, that's not something we get on modern computers anymore. That's just not how computers work anymore. They don't build them like they used to.
I mean, is there like any things happening in the XFCE that might change it to a different version of it?
Yeah, they're just about to get to GTK3 on a good percentage of their applications. And then after that, that's the next step to going to Wayland. And so probably by 2025, we'll have Wayland support.
Oh boy. Any minute.
You know what? Hell with it. I'm going to install KDE.
Go ahead, Minnie.
Chris, if I tell you that I have probably the same configuration for my E17 desktop I had about 10 years ago, no change.
Really?
And it works, no problem.
Do you attribute that? Do you attribute that to what do you attribute that to? Desktop environment, hardware choices at the time, distro. What do you attribute that to?
The E17 manager came with the composite manager.
Yeah, early.
Ago,
it was early.
All the others.
Yeah.
Very early.
Right.
And once you had your configuration, and that configuration stayed stable. So it's E17, now it's E22. It's just an involvement. In the background, they changed a lot, but the configuration stays the same. So I can use the same configuration as before.
That is nice. I do really thank you because I don't really have a lot of experience with E17, so that's a good perspective. I will say it feels like Plasma's been pretty good at taking my config and moving it forward, because I'm, I've got 6 systems that I'm running the Plasma desktop on that are all on Neon User Edition. And so they're all getting frequent-ish updates. And they're all, with the exception of my machine today that has a blank screen on my desktop after updating, they've all been pretty good. That, like the settings, like the small esoteric stuff too. Like even the position of the layout of console seems to stay the same. And I really appreciate that. And so much so that I was really kind of debating back and forth with Noah while I was at Scale. What am I going to reload onto Hadia's systems in her acupuncture clinic? Because I think she's on 1610 or 1604. I'm not sure, but one is Mate and one is Unity.
Mm.
And it turns out there's different little issues on each that they would just like resolved, and they would like it to be the same interface, so that way when the staff use the different computers, it's all the same. And so like, well, okay, so what distro and what desktop environment do I pick? Because they were on Unity, and now they're going to be on, and so Mate was a consideration, and XFCE was considered because they don't have high DPI, but I think I'm going to do Plasma as long as it's the one I'm using, is what my thought. What were you going to say, Ryan?
Shouldn't you beta test it first?
If
Yeah,
you do Plasma, I would suggest checking out Kubuntu 1804.
This is what I was thinking.
There's a lot of polish.
Yeah, I actually, and not just that, right? But it's going to be Plasma LTS and Ubuntu LTS, right?
And Qt LTS.
Oh, okay. Yeah,
I mean,
that
technically isn't Lubuntu LXQt now?
Lubuntu is, yeah, but Kubuntu is like that perfect sweet spot.
Lubuntu is not.
What? Lubuntu is not.
Lubuntu is still LXDE.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're still LXDE.
Yeah, they've got Lubuntu Next, which isn't
Right.
the mainstream version, which is LXQt, but no, it's still on LXDE.
Yeah.
Right.
But
Chris, I've got one word for you, right, to solve your problem.
what?
Mutiny.
I know.
Yeah.
I know, it crossed my mind. It really did. But they're having desktop application crashes with Mate. And so the public opinion is a little low right now on the Mate desktop. Now, I don't...
Was it like a browser crash or what?
File Manager, I think, what is the Kaja? I think it's Kaja is crashing. I can't... Hadia has been complaining to me, and it's not that I don't listen. It's just that I just sort of all kind of collect into a bag of, I got to fix their computer problems. And
Does
so
she know how to update the packages every month?
Well, she gets the graphical prompt, and I have her do that. But and so for the most part, all that's been fine, with the exception of she's on that version, well, she's on those versions of Ubuntu where they fill up the /boot. So about twice a year, her /boot fills up on her computers. And then I have to walk her through the auto remove, and yeah. And she just hates that. So that's another reason to upgrade her, because that's something they finally fixed in Ubuntu.
Do you not use unattended upgrades on that then?
No, just because of my old school sort of like, nothing changes until she pushes the button, and so it's ultimately her pushing the button to decide to do the upgrades. So, and she does it. She does them. They just wait to do them like on a Friday when things aren't busy or something. You know, with 1804, and with 1804, with all that, with Kubuntu 1804, all that stuff lining up LTS seems like a pretty safe bet. But we'll see. The jury is still out. I will do some testing. I'm gonna have her.
Also, I'm contributing to Kubuntu 1804, so that by itself should be an example.
Well, there. Anything in particular? Anything just in moral support or
the whole new design? I'm changing a bunch of defaults that I don't like that they're willing to listen to me about.
No kidding. That's great.
Yeah. The single click to double click, that's changing.
Yes.
Yes. Are you going to remove all the animations?
Oh, ouch. But then what would my GPU be doing?
Technically, you could, but then it wouldn't be as good, you know.
Yeah.
Question: does anybody still have the freezing archive upgrade issue whenever they upgrade stuff on occasion?
Freezing archive upgrade?
What do you mean?
As in, like, it goes to the archive.ubuntu.com and it freezes at that point, and it doesn't move.
That sounds like a DNS resolution issue or something. That's not a problem. That's not an issue. That's not something that other people are having. I don't think. I mean,
every time I seem to do it, no matter what distro I have, it seems to freeze on that. And I did the step of adding that of adding that certain line from the Ubuntu forums, but that's still.
So this is like a known thing. This is like because I mean, at this point you're just dealing with apt. It's not like this is anything Ubuntu. Apt is just doing an HTTP connection to a server. So this is some basic stuff.
Yeah, and even if I change it over to like a local, like a server nearby, I'm still having issues.
Oh, somebody's getting a call. All right, well, there you go. I don't know. If anybody has any tips for JJ, let him know in the chat room, irc.geekshed.net, #Jupiter Broadcasting. But, Wes, we must get this show on the road.
There's Linux to discuss.
There is much to talk about. So with that, let's get going. This is Linux Unplugged, episode 242. Welcome to Linux Unplugged, your weekly Linux talk show. It's got so much to discuss, from birthdays to new features and new distros, that we got to get right into it. My name is Chris.
My name is Wes.
Hello, Wes. I'd say it's like super good to be with you and all that stuff, but I actually have been hanging out with you all day.
That is true.
So it's just been nice hanging out with you today. We had some Chinese food. We got the dogs in studio.
Now we're in the perfect mood for today's Unplugged.
Totally. In fact, we got something really fun coming up. We're going to take a look at the new Slax 9.4. You know about Slax. It used to be based on Slackware, now is based on Debian, and they've got some really cool features and, well, maybe might just be the perfect distro for you secret agents. I'll tell you about that coming up. Then we're going to get into some brand new spanking features we're rolling out here on the Unplugged program. Podcast updates, everybody. And then not one, not two, but 3 updates to this story about Google blocking GApps on uncertified devices. Is your custom ROM doomed? Stay tuned and find out. Microsoft has some new open source, and after you hear about what it is, it'll be like, how come they didn't do that sooner?
Yeah.
I thought they were all about the open source. Then, a new Wayland contender enters the field. We'll tell you about that. How people are creating their own open source Tesla wall replacement. You know those Tesla batteries?
Yeah,
Yeah.
fancy.
Yeah. In fact, I'm going to propose we could combine 2 different open source initiatives, one that Joe and I talked about, and this initiative, to really make something special. Then we got a couple of app picks, and then, yeah, like I said, we'll get to Slax, which is super cool. I got it running on my machine right here, right now. I love it. But before we go any further, we got to bring in our virtual lug. Time-appropriate greetings, Mumbaroo.
What's up?
Hello.
Get it out of here.
A rare Joe Rez appearance in the virtual lug this week. That's great. It's good to see you, everybody. Thank you for being here. Did you guys notice? You probably did, but I thought it's worth mentioning here on the show. Red Hat turned 25 yesterday. So that means 1993. And Red Hat points out that that was pre-dot-com boom, pre-mobile, pre-cloud computing, pre-big data, pre-DevOps and containers. And Red Hat has been through it the whole time. And at first I was like, oh, that's cute. But then you think about it, like, shit, that's a lot of stuff to have to respond to. Those are a lot of big trends. The dot-com boom is alone like a make it or breaker, right?
Yeah.
Like a lot
Absolutely.
of companies died. And then cloud computing and mobile and all of that, instead of it making Red Hat irrelevant, they managed at each time to sort of turn and meet the new challenge. And now, on their frickin' 25th birthday, they're damn near worth $2 billion.
Wow.
It's going to be an interesting, in a way, because the market has been sort of flushing out for so long and establishing. It's like the next few years are going to be some of the most critical, I think, because there's a lot of really valuable real estate, and Red Hat isn't necessarily the best position to take advantage of it. I'm thinking about AWS, and I'm thinking about Azure, and I'm thinking about Rackspace, where I have had conversations directly with people running those infrastructures where they have told me to my face, Ubuntu is about 70% of the install base on our systems. And, you know, if I'm Red Hat, I'm looking at that going, we've got to get some of that market. We've got to get some of that market. And so I wouldn't be surprised if 2018 isn't going to be a really aggressive year for Red Hat, especially 2019. 25 years. That's a lot of stuff.
It is.
That's a lot of stuff. And, you know, they got the Red Hat Summit coming up in San Fran. Tempted to go. Tempted to email them and say,
That could
hey,
be fun.
what do you think about me going to Red Hat Summit? It's in San Fran. I've decided after scale that pretty much anything south of San Francisco is no good. I don't know. You've been to California before?
Yes, I have. No, I think you're about.
Have you ever noticed it just gets really brown and smoggy after San Francisco? I mean, I'm going to go to Pasadena and Scale, and I love it down there. You guys are great, but really everything after San Francisco is just no good. So
Shh, don't tell them. They'll come up to Washington.
that's what they're doing.
I know. Shh.
You joke, but that's actually like a local controversy. Is that all these damn Californians keep coming up to our Washington? Like that is
Not
a
that
real...
we don't love you, dear Californian listeners.
Yeah, no, we love the listeners. Yeah, we love the listeners. It's just their damn roads that we hate. Anyways, the Red Hat Summit is in San Francisco on May 8th to the 10th.
I mean, I'm certainly glad Red Hat's around.
but
It would
Chris-
be more boring
Yeah,
otherwise.
go ahead, Joe.
ahead,
Yeah,
Joe.
it would. Yeah, go ahead, Joe.
Yeah, I was going to say, you talked about like AWS and stuff and how Ubuntu is massive on those platforms, but how much revenue is that actually bringing into them? If you've ever got RHEL running on them, then Red Hat are making money, whereas most people running Ubuntu on AWS or wherever aren't necessarily paying for support.
Right.
Yeah.
You gotta
It
filter.
doesn't really matter how much market penetration Ubuntu has got. It all boils down to dollars and cents, doesn't it?
That's a fair point. Yeah, not every AWS or Azure installation is necessarily translating to a support contract with Canonical. In
And
fact,
there's a lot of T2 micros out there running Ubuntu, and
Yeah.
probably some RHEL machines in the Gov cloud doing
well,
real
and
work.
there's lots of .com heroes who can swoop in and help you with your Ubuntu box too, so you don't have to go get that contract. But I would submit you, Joe, there's still headwinds for Red Hat too, because take AWS again, and just after I've begun to and I think you know what I'm talking about, Wes. After I've begun to understand the scale of AWS recently, it almost like doesn't matter what all the other guys are doing. Like AWS in itself is so large that if only they do something, it moves the whole industry. Like the scale is in terms
That
and
is
numbers.
certainly true.
It is hard for us to understand. But Wes and I recently got a better understanding of it. And the thing you got to consider with Red Hat is not only are they kind of behind already in that space, but then you've got Amazon Linux, which we've talked about before. And Amazon Linux is based on Red Hat, and it's supported by Amazon directly, and it's part of their image gallery, and it's one-click deployment for Amazon Linux, which is essentially kind of like CentOS. Don't call it Red Hat. And like, if I'm on AWS, maybe that's what I deploy instead of Red Hat. You know, so like now Red Hat not only has to compete against Canonical, but they've got to compete against AWS's own homebrewed Linux, which is really just RHEL. That's.
But isn't that just the startups? Isn't that just the people who can't afford RHEL proper who are going to go for Amazon Linux? But then the big companies who can actually afford to pay for the support contracts are going to keep paying for RHEL. And
I think so.
That's why RHEL have continued, Red Hat have continued to be this huge company who are now pushing, you talked about 2 billion, they're pushing 3 billion at this point.
Yeah. I think you're probably right that if, anybody that's going to have serious infrastructure that's going to be making a lot of money, like think about your Facebooks and your YouTubes and anybody that's going to be rolling serious infrastructure is going to have a support contract, and they're going to go with Red Hat. Yeah, Red Hat's doing good. Their stock's up today. It's been a little all over the place, but 25 years is pretty respectable.
Yeah. I mean, they're obviously thinking about these new things too with their, acquisition of CoreOS and
Yes.
similar. We'll see
Yes.
if it bears fruit, I suppose.
Speaking of that, the whole their big quote unquote Kubernetes play, right? That's all about the future. That's all about orchestration of lots of systems, which is boy, that's going to be fascinating to watch. Hoo-wee. All right, Wes. Well, we're not the only ones. Red Hat, you got out there. You got us out there. We're making changes. Everybody's making big improvements.
It's spring. It's the time for that.
It's the season of change, and we have some nice improvements coming to the Unplugged program that I want to tell you guys about, and a little bit of a heads up. So last week I said you're going to see some changes. You're going to see some feed changes, all that kind of stuff. Well, here we are this week. It's arrived. LinuxUnplugged.com, which is a nice companion to LinuxActionNews.com. So we got LinuxActionNews.com and LinuxUnplugged.com, dedicated site and a resource for this show. And it will be sort of the canonical destination, I guess I'd say, if you will. Can you say that? Is that fair?
You're allowed.
Okay.
This time.
Yeah. All right, good. And so, for example, like say you wanted to get the links for something we talked about, you go to linuxunplugged.com/242 or 241, for example, and you get all the links for the stuff we talked about. You want the RSS feed? We got that too. You go to linuxunplugged.com/RSS, or if you want links to your favorite podcast catcher, it's linuxunplugged.com/subscribe. Are you getting it?
Yeah, it's clean. It's simple. simple.
Easy.
It looks easy, yeah.
Yeah, new dedicated feeds, new dedicated site, and we're rolling out chapter markers to the MP3 feed. Started last week, so you'll see them if you have a Pocket Cast or Overcast or any of them that support
one of them fancy clients.
Or a desktop player. I believe that VLC can do it. I believe it's possible to accomplish that in VLC, Wes.
Beautiful.
I believe, Wes, I believe. You can check that out, though, linuxunplugged.com. As you go there, then go grab the RSS feed. Make sure you've got the right feed, linuxunplugged.com/RSS. New stuff, chapter markers I think are going to be pretty popular. People love them across all the other shows. I soft launched them last week and already got a bunch of people saying they liked them. So check out linuxunplugged.com. Check out the new podcast feed. Now, that said, there's going to be other changes coming. Now, some of these changes, none of you are going to care about. You're going to be like, Chris, I don't even know why you're spending time on this. And some of you are going to want to come to the studio and punch me in the face. So it's a difficult position I find myself in. You know what I'm saying? Difficult position.
I sure do.
Rekai's last week was basically last week. He's still technically here, but we're trying to transition everything and get it all done and do everything before he's gone, right? Try to be proactive. He gave his notice at the beginning of the month, and we now have all the equipment. We're doing the editing. I'm editing the shows. And as part of that, I am making some damn changes because I'll tell you what, I don't got another full-time job in me, and I can't be editing the video for this show. I just can't. I can't be doing it.
And we can't have you just falling over in exhaustion because then everything shuts down.
So we're going to make some changes, but I actually think people might like them. So I'm going to be publishing a couple of different things for a little bit just to experiment to see what the audience likes. Because none of this stuff is hard set. But if you watch the video version of the Unplugged program, there will probably be two versions initially is what I'm thinking. We're going to have the live version that will go on a new YouTube channel. And then we'll have an edited version, which will go on the main Jupiter Broadcasting channel, the podcast version. The primary release will be the MP3 feed at linuxunplugged.com. We'll generate a video for that at the Jupiter Broadcasting YouTube channel. And then we have a JB Live YouTube channel that we'll be setting up that will be the complete live stream, unedited, full video version of the show. I don't know if that's going to be how it is for, say, the next 6 months. I don't know if it's going to be how it is for a month. That's just how we're trying it right now as I'm trying out different stuff. So that's kind of in the works. So you'll see us experimenting with the video version. If you watch that, I got to be honest with you, tens of thousands of more people download the audio version than watch the video version. So that's where my attention has to go because I've got to do this show. I've got to do all the other shows. I've got to edit all the other shows. Well, except for LAN. Joe's editing LAN. Thank God.
Yeah, I was going to say.
Jeez. Thank God. Especially considering how bad those two guys mess up all the time. Am I right? And then when cats like Happy jump in, somebody's got to edit that out. That was a funny moment that happened during LAN last week. A little behind the scenes is we're sitting there recording, and a cat on Joe's side of the recording jumps up on his keyboard.
Oh, yikes.
And it's like, I almost want to just leave that in the show. I almost thought that was worth leaving in there. It is in the Telegram group. If you want to go hear that outtake, Joe did actually pop it in our Jupiter Broadcasting Telegram group at jupiterbroadcasting.com/Telegram. Anyways, so these changes are coming down the pipe. I am using this as an opportunity to convert the show to a multi-track recording so that Wes is on his own track, I'm on my own track, the Mumble Room is on their own track, Richard Stallman's on his own track.
Get it out of here.
And then they all get processed individually, and it makes the audio sound much better. Everybody be at the same level. That stuff's finally happening.
Woo!
Because it's like, well, if I'm going to be sitting down and taking over the edit for a bit, might as well do it the way I would want to do it now taking everything I've learned. At some point, I'm going to hand this stuff off. Things will be changing. All of that is going to change in the future. But for right now, I'm kind of circling the wagons. I'm taking it in-house. I'm doing the work. Not to sound braggadocious, but I'm going to try to move the bar up a little bit, get it to the next level. That's always my thing, is try to move the quality up on all of our shows a little bit.
And optimize for the audio experience.
Yes, and still provide the complete unadulterated video version is my thought for those who want it.
Capture that live experience.
Yeah. So we'll see. We'll be experimenting with that. Things will come and go as we implement new stuff. But if you just want no fuss, get the show every single week, and get the best version possibly available, linuxunplugged.com/subscribe. Just grab the feed. That if you have that, you don't have to worry about any of this. But for those of you who follow us on the live stream or follow us on YouTube or download the MP4 from the feeds or whatever, you will see some experimentation happening there. We love you. Don't get the torches. Don't get the pitchforks. Don't come to our studio. We will work with you. Just give us time. Is that a good disclaimer?
I think that's fair.
Whew.
That was a lot.
I had to get that off. I just had to get that off my chest because, whew, man, that was weighing on me. And the thing is everybody knows that Linux is good for browsing the web.
It's for people who like to mess with computers. If you're
No, it's for people who like to mess with the web.
The web.
It's for people who like to mess with computers.
Oh, okay. Sorry, it's that. Speaking of people who like to mess with computers, people who like to run unofficial Android ROMs sort of got the slap down this week. It looks like Google has been tweaking how they, authenticate, I guess you could say, uncertified devices, quote unquote. This is a story over at xdadevelopers.com with several updates. So let's get through some of this. A device maker must follow the CDD, which is a compatibility test suite from Google, before they're allowed to preload Google apps and services on their device. You're familiar with this if you've ever loaded an unofficial ROM and then you've had to go out and get the G apps yourself. Well, earlier this week, XDA Forums received an anonymous tip from a person claiming to be within, quote unquote, the industry.
Oh my.
This person, who said they worked for an OEM, notified them that Google was going to start entirely locking out newly built firmware from accessing G apps. And this change apparently went into effect March 16th, 2018, and it affects all software builds made after that date. Now, yesterday, a member on the XDA forums, a senior member at that, came across the exact problem on his own device, which kind of goes down the lines of you get a full screen error message that comes up. It says in big red font, device is not certified by Google. And then it's got helpful instructions for users who purchase this device, unlicensed manufacturers, licensed manufacturers, and custom ROM users. Actually, the custom ROM users is worth reading because there is a way for you to personally authorize up to 100 devices. So you can actually get around this problem. So it's not the end of the world for custom ROM users. It doesn't appear to be affecting custom ROMs that are pretty popular, though. It's more like OEMs who have their own open source build of Android who have tried to cram G apps on there. Google's sort of being selective in how they apply this.
Yeah, that makes sense. I can see that being a problem for them as well, and trying to have some level of quality control so that they can, have Android be a decent platform.
Yeah, although Minnie brings up a good question. Go ahead, Minnie, or a good point. This could be an issue for Ubuntu Touch, huh?
Well, it's really bad news for Ubuntu Touch or Selfish OS. There is this sandbox solution called Nbox. I think it is Ubuntu initiative, and this starts to work quite well on devices that have at least a 3.10 kernel. So with this announcement, a lot of applications will not run on these devices because you can't install the Google services. That's the thing.
Yeah, you're right.
There's this joke going in the Selfish OS community about Google acting like someone who is slowly boiling some frogs. I mean, they started as open source project with Android, and now they're closing it down more and more.
Yes, that is a point that I have made on this show before, and it really bothered me when now feels like ancient history, but when they moved photos to a Play Store app from the open source photo management app that was on Android. That really, for me, and that and Chrome. Remember when they switched from the open source browser to Chrome? Yeah, you're right. It has been a slow boil.
More and more reliance on everything Google, all the APIs.
Those insidious bastards. Joe, you run custom ROMs 24/7. Does this concern you at all, or is that personal device activation / registration thing sort of take care of it for you?
Well, it worried me when I first heard about it, but then I looked into it and read more about it, and it's like, okay, it's going to be one more step. I'm going to have to extract the device ID and then go to a Google web page and input that and then get my device okayed, whitelisted, whatever. So it's a little bit more hassle for me. But in terms of UBports and Anbox, I mean, Anbox in UBports is going to be the standout feature in 2018. And if this is going to make that harder to work, then that is very worrying for me. In terms of running Lineage, it's a mainstream custom ROM. I'm not personally worried, but yeah, those extra ROMs like Lineage and UBports and Sailfish, that's where I'm worried.
Yeah, good point. And I also saw in the comment section on that forum, but it seems like a pretty good tip, that you can use Titanium Backup to back up your ID. And then when you load a new ROM, you can use Titanium Backup to restore that ID, then install Google Apps and the GApp stuff, and you shouldn't have a problem. Haven't tried it myself, obviously, but that seems like that should be pretty solid. That seems like that could work. You know what? In the past had used Titanium Backup. That was some good-ass software. Titanium Backup. Just going to plug it. It is, you got to pay for it to get the full thing, and to really have it work, like to get the ID, you got to have root on your device. But if you're loading custom ROMs, you've probably already
do.
That isn't your issue. Now this is your issue. Like that was the easy part. Speaking of mobile, let's talk about Ting. It's smarter than unlimited. You use less, you pay less. Linux.ting.com. Linux.ting.com is where you go to get $25 in service credit if you bring a device, and $25 off a device if you want to buy one directly from Ting. And I really would encourage you just to go look. They've got a bunch of great devices that you may have never even considered. It's like we always talk about like 3 or 4 phones, but there are a ton of other great phones out there. And on the Ting blog, too, if this is your thing for Ting, they just did a roundup of their favorite flip phones, including, it's not quite a flip phone, but including the one that Noah got ages ago. It's about as thick as 3 credit cards. It's a little GSM phone. You can literally put it in your wallet.
That's so easy.
That's so nuts. I love it. Anyways, bunch of great devices if you want to grab one or just get a SIM or bring your own. Just start by going to linux.ting.com. You pay for what you use. A fair price for however much you talk, text, or however much data you use. And they got nationwide coverage, GSM and CDMA, so you can rest assured that Ting has got you covered. I just took them down on my scale trip, and damn if the CDMA didn't rock it. Also, personal recommendation, if you are in the Eugene area of Oregon, holy crap, the Ting CDMA network is blazing. So is the GSM network. But better than that, crazy great ping times. I don't know what they're doing, but I some of the best ping times I have had probably this year was when I was on my way to Scale in Eugene doing this show remotely. I did that whole show over the Ting connection.
It was
Remember
wonderful,
that?
yeah.
And I did Coder before that, too. I did 2 shows over that Ting connection. And I love the flexibility. You want it as a hotspot? They're not blocking any of that stuff. There's no big Ting strategy getting in the way. They don't have some play for video streaming. It's just pay for what you use wireless. It's great. Nationwide coverage, easy dashboard, fanatical customer service. Just start by going to linux.ting.com. And thanks to Ting for sponsoring the Unplugged program. That's linux.ting.com. So Microsoft is open sourcing something today. And when you hear about this, it's going to be like one of those, oh yeah, okay, that makes sense. They have open sourced a Windows subsystem for Linux. Is that the right Windows subsystem for Linux? Yeah.
Yep.
Sample to let other distributions that they haven't reached out to personally follow, so that way they can package up their distro for the Windows Store. Heyo! The new process makes it clear on how Linux distributions can be adapted to run on the Windows subsystem for Linux. It's called the Wsl Distro Launcher, and it's now open source. It's a C++ code base offering a launcher that could be customized for particular distributions, and it helps you step through setting up the login shell, running commands, setting configuration values. Bob's your uncle. You're good to go. You grab this open source sample, follow that. Then once you got it all done, you just call up Microsoft and say, please, sir, please, I'd really like to be in your app store. Please let me in the app store. Yes, I know I'm just a little distro. I mean, you go.
You do. I mean, that is part of the process.
It is.
Yeah.
It is legitimately part of the process. In fact, Microsoft outlines it right here on the Microsoft developer blog, where they talk about it. And they say you have to submit it to the store. You'll have to work with us to receive publishing approval. If you're a Linux distribution owner interested in adding your distribution to the Microsoft Store, contact us at wspartners@microsoft.com.
You know what stood out to me about that article? They use the word sideload a lot, and it's just
I saw that.
That used to be a lockdown mobile OS term. It's now
Now it's a Windows term.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. So the way they're doing this too is they're making these essentially universal Windows applications. I don't quote me on the terminology because again I'm not a big Windows guy, but they're UWP applications. UWP, which I think stands for Universal Windows something or others, and it's a way to package up an application and deliver it in the Windows Store, and that's something that you can now do to Linux
The
distros.
P is for platform.
Thank you, Wes. A ding for you.
Oh boy.
I got this weird, like, part of me is like, this is great, more people using free software and Linux, and then part of me is like, this is weird, and now we're talking about sideloading Linux onto Windows. My brain doesn't understand this. And, you and I went down on Friday night. We went out and had some beers with Mr. Martin Wimpy, who was in Seattle, and he had been visiting some folks at Microsoft. I think that's all public. I think I'm allowed to say that. And it was interesting hearing his insights into the conversations with Microsoft and where they're at with all of this stuff. It's a real sea change, and it's super hard for those of us that have been in the Linux community since the early days to really wrap our head around it because, and I completely agreed with Wimpy's take. So I'm not putting words in Wimpy's mouth. He just is sort of said some of the things that I personally identified, and that was when I was there weeks ago talking to them. They don't have this air of guilt, or they're not coming at this apologetically, or they're not groveling. They're not treating it like, oh, we've been a bad boy and we're really sorry and now we want to be friends with Linux. It's, we have a legitimate technology. The open source community has a legitimate technology. There's no reason that we can't make these two things work together because that's exactly what our customers want. It's not because all of a sudden they've gotten the smell of RMS. It's not because all of a sudden they just have totally embraced the Linux and Unix philosophies. It's simply because they've figured out customers will pay us really good money to make this shit work.
It's business over philosophy now.
And so they're meeting on this sort of technical level. There's nothing to do with the former emotional baggage attached with Microsoft's battle against Linux and open source. And it's fascinating to watch it because from the outside, you have no perception of it. Microsoft makes an announcement. It comes from this large company that has lots of money and lots of people, and you can't really understand the 4 or 5 years of work behind the scenes that's been happening. And so when you see stuff like that, it's really easy to go, shit, Microsoft is they're just going to be like, they're going to be the cancer. They're going to spread all over Linux, and they're going to embrace and extinguish. When you see things like, now it's easy for anybody to package up a distro on the Windows Store. But the reality is, it seems to be that the nature of Linux, open source, and the GPL is this unstoppable snowball. It really is. Like every time these companies have tried to embrace and extinguish, they just end up being part of the snowball. They just get caught up with it. And I think that's what's happening even to a large company like Microsoft. It's not that Microsoft is trying to rip off Linux users or buy off Linux or trying to influence open source development. It's that even a company as large as Microsoft couldn't stop the Linux open source snowball.
Yeah, they're just forced to play ball with it because that's what makes business sense.
Yeah. But the emotional reaction when you see that is, oh man, these bastards at Microsoft are trying to embrace and extinguish, and this is yet another way that they're doing it. But I think that undersells the power of Linux, GPL, and open source. I think you're underselling like how responsible they are for making a massive sea shift in which the entire industry has to respond to, even IBM and Microsoft.
Right. And I don't think that necessarily means we have to, completely be on board with the Microsoft Hearts Linux thing, right? No. We should still be skeptical of their motives and try to understand where they're coming from and what they're doing, but they're not necessarily some evil Linux-hating monstrosity anymore.
Yeah. Cautiously optimistic skepticism.
Yeah, there we go.
Perfect way to put it. Yeah, I think that's a great way to put it. I'm also cautiously optimistic about this new 3D Wayland compositor, which I saw you submitted to our Linux. That's actually how I saw this story, Rodden. Yep. So what caught your attention about this, other than it's yet another Wayland compositor, but this one it's called Wayfire. It's based on libweston, and they say they aim to create a customized, extensible A customized extendable, excuse me, they say they aim to create a customizable and extendable lightweight environment without sacrificing appearance. Those things appeal to me, but was there something else that caught your attention, Ron?
Yeah, there's a lot of stuff that they had in like just the concepts that they're working on is to move some stuff that are already in existing compositors and window managers and making it possible to work in Wayfire so that could be used in Wayland. So like the most obvious one and like even the jokey one is the desktop cube.
Yes.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah, that was the number one comment. Was like, yes, finally somebody understands. I want my desktop cube back.
Yeah, exactly. And it's actually kind of funny because the way they're doing the desktop cube is interesting because they're like, the cube itself is modifiable in like weird ways. Like you can make it concave and convex and stuff.
Finally.
Yeah, of course. Who doesn't need that? But there's other things that are actually like, somewhat more useful in the sense of like the expo mode that it's going to have built into it.
Oh,
and
yeah.
It already has some of this stuff already working.
Right.
It's in pre-alpha.
I mean, we joke, but I guess the
technically.
advantage here is then the desktop environment folks don't have to invent how to do that, right? So it's just done for them.
The one thing that made me really the most interested was probably the fact that they were talking about having window rules work. So like the compositor itself with window rules, that is amazing.
Yeah. Now,
what's the point of the perfect 60 frames a second compositing if we can't have desktop cubes?
This isn't probably very applicable to like Mutter or Kwin, though, right? I mean, this is for desktop environments that don't necessarily have a solution in place.
Replacement for if they don't have a compositor, this would be for that.
Yeah,
like basically the window managers that are like dependent on X and stuff like that.
Yeah. So this is a solution. We see different things coming up. I have a pretty strong inclination that we're going to hear more about Mir in the future, about that as a middle layer between Wayland and the desktop environments. But this is another option. And it's up on GitHub. Did you get a sense of how far along they are? It looks like they have some basic stuff currently implemented. Good stuff, even like touchscreen gestures and stuff. But they definitely have some stuff they haven't done yet.
Technically works, but they're basically saying this is prototyping stuff that we can show works, but don't rely on it. But they're saying that it's a pre-alpha stage, so that they're not really claiming anyone should use it. But they are talking about that it already works with X-Wayland, so like any X-Wayland clients, you could already use it.
Wow. That's nice. Good find.
As soon as a distro actually supports this, because I'm gonna see if like Arch or something like that would be interested in it. As soon as something supports it, I'm gonna definitely check it out.
Yeah. And I like that they're trying to solve some hard technical challenges for some of these desktop
kind of push the conversation forward a bit.
Yep. Wayfire will have a link. Go to Linux Action. Nope. That's the other show. linuxunplugged.com/242.
You're just confused because both sites are so lovely.
It's the actually what it is that those are the only two of the new sites that are .coms. So they blur together in my head because like TechSnap is techsnap.systems, techtalk.today, coder.show, unfilter.show, right? But these two are .coms. But I felt like they deserve the .com treatment, like with the .com authority. So it is linuxunplugged.com/242. Don't get it mixed up like I do. We're going to probably be talking soon about redoing the website, the main Jupiter Broadcasting site. Because right now we're just cross-posting everything there, but I feel like we could automate that. Wes is always like, you need to automate that. That's like
true.
Every conversation that we have behind the scenes, Wes is like, oh, we could automate that. I'm like, yeah, that boy, Wes. I like the way you think.
More time for more show.
Yeah, that's right. We could automate that. We probably will in the future. There's just gonna be things that have to change. Just as
stay flexible.
Yeah,
nimble.
as we make a transition like this. But one of the nice bennies about having the linuxunplugged.com site set up is we can make changes at jb.com, and if you're just following there, it doesn't matter. If you just want the Linux Unplugged
backstep.
Yeah, maybe what we ought to do is build a whole new infrastructure up on DigitalOcean, do.co/unplugged. Go there for a limited time and sign up and get $100 credit for a new account. $100 credit. I don't know how long they're going to do this. They told me it'd be a limited time. Maybe it's already over. Maybe you should just go right now and find out. do.co/unplugged. Find out, because what an incredible value. Honestly, $10 would get you by for 2 months. You could run a DigitalOcean droplet 2 months for free with $10. And if you go to do.co/unplugged, you get a $100 credit. And I have a suspicion. I believe it's because they're rolling out these new droplet plans. Now, for years, they've been a sponsor here on the Unplugged program, and you know that they offer really great pricing on droplets. My favorite system is 3 cents an hour. 3 cents an hour. That's great. You can get the $5 a month droplet, run it 2 months for free with our standard promo. But now when you go to do.co/unplugged and get the $100 credit, why not play with some of the big boys? They got high CPU droplets, flexible droplets where you can mix and match the resources. They got high RAM droplets. Go to town. Load everything up in RAM. Go cray-cray. Do what Wes does and run everything from a RAM disk. You do that, right, Wes? That's what you do?
Of course I do.
Why not? Wes does 2 things and only 2 things. Runs everything as root and runs everything out of RAM. That's why I don't know.
Lean and mean, baby.
Just go to do.co/unplugged to sign up and try out their new flexible droplets. Mix and match the resources you need, play around with snapshots, you can use the team accounts, and then if you ever get stuck, they have fantastic documentation, including a new tutorial that went live just a couple of hours ago about how to configure 1604, Ubuntu 1604, to reject a whole bunch of bogus SSH connections. Something that monitors for connections. I'm not talking fail to ban. I'm talking about something different. That monitors for bogus login attempts and then starts banning those IPs automatically. That's the kind of great documentation that DigitalOcean has on their website all the time. They have professional folks that keep that stuff lean, mean, and easy to read. do.co/unplugged. Go there, sign up, and try out their new flexible droplets. do.co/unplugged. And a big thank you to DigitalOcean for sponsoring the Unplugged program. do.co/unplugged. So I will admit that living in a Class A RV has made me particularly interested in running everything from batteries. But what if you had your own Tesla Powerwall? You know about the Powerwall, right? That was something that Tesla introduced for homeowners. It's kind of funky. Because you have to be on an actual residential property. You can't just go buy some land in Arizona and set up a Powerwall. You have to be at a residence. You have to have an internet connection to use a Powerwall. And after you spent $5,500, you then essentially have supplemental power in case the electricity goes out. It's kind of funky.
Just a big battery bank sort of plugged in to everything.
Wouldn't it be great if you could build that yourself from, say, old laptop batteries?
Oh.
Turns out actually a thing. In fact, laptop batteries are particularly good at this. You could build your own wall, and there's a link that we'll put in the show notes that you can go check out, including a bunch of different folks who essentially worked it out and said it's about $5 per battery. And one bloke out of Australia has this unbelievable setup with 40 solar panels in his roof. He's pulling down 40 kilowatt hours, and then he has these racks of batteries. So they look like AA's. But if you were to break open your laptop, your lithium ion battery in your laptop, and take the casing off of it, they're individual AA looking batteries in there. And they got this particular color that is set by the industry. So that's how you know they're the kind of battery that you need. And I don't know, it's cyan. I don't know exactly. How would you describe that color, Wes? What would you? It's a bluish. It's a sky blue, I guess.
Yeah, something like that.
And when you get ones that are sky blue, you essentially have the right battery. And depending on how many you have, depending on how many laptops you want to murder, you could set up a Powerwall yourself using a Raspberry Pi to manage all of this. And here's an example. So the Tesla Powerwall is capable of storing 14 kilowatt hours, but this dude built one that could store 40 kilowatt hours out of Australia. And there's a whole DIY Powerwall forum. And I thought, this is pretty good. This is interesting. This is useful. But if you combine this with a project that Joe and I covered on Linux Action News by Eric Raymond, then you'd really be cooking with gas. Eric Raymond ESR recently launched the Upside project, and they're currently defining the requirements for a smart UPS, because UPSs suck. They're bad. They don't really they don't intelligently monitor the battery. They don't intelligently watch the charge. They're just the worst. And so ESR was sort of waxing on about this, and from that created the Upside project. People have joined on, and they've created a full requirements now of what you need to do smart charging, to control the monitoring, to fail into a bypass mode instead of completely failing off and cutting the power, what the minimum run times should be. I'm proposing that I'm doing matchmaking right here on the show. These two different initiatives, the DIY Powerwall and ESR's Upside project, they should at least start maybe flirting, take each other out to dinner or something, because this could be a great combination of efforts. Something that you could build yourself from your old crappy laptops, and then something to actually manage and monitor and keep everything working well. It's an example of two kind of side things that are going on out there. People are discussing, people are trying to figure out, because the technology has just kind of gotten there and made all of this stuff accessible, but they're not really coming together yet. They're not coming. Maybe they never will. But I love the idea of these two things. You take Upside, the smart UPS, you take the DIY Powerwall, you bring them together, Wes. It's a kumbaya.
Yeah, if you're already managing power, just do it at the whole house scale. And you could then do it without any of that cloud crap or anything else.
Yeah, I mean, if we're not going to have reactors in our backyards, maybe we could have Powerwalls and solar panels.
That's almost as good.
No, I don't. No, they didn't make it out to the west. They didn't make it here. They didn't make it out here.
We're uncivilized.
Maybe someday.
All right. All right, well, if that's not your thing, then you're one of those people. And you probably like Electron apps. Yeah, I'm onto you. You like Electron apps. You got Slack installed. Oh, Skype and Spotify too? Well, there's no helping you. Then we might as well pile on. How about an Electron-based terminal? Yeah?
You're right. That's the last thing. Every other thing I run is basically running Chrome somehow, right? But not the terminal.
Mm-hmm. You're welcome. You're welcome.
My life is complete,
You see what I do for you? You see I do this for you. It's called Hyper. And it's a modern terminal built on web technologies. That's what they say. It's built on web technologies. And you know what, Wes? It actually looks kind of good. Check it out. Go to hyper.is. Hyper.is. Take a look at this thing and tell me at least some part of you doesn't kind of want to run this. Maybe Joe, the XFCE user of the house, maybe this doesn't appeal to him. I don't know. But
all right, I'm launching the app image right now.
Do you see how they have effects when you type? You see how they have the blasting? They have destructo effects when you type. Look at that. You see that?
Whoa, fancy.
Yeah, they have like confetti blowing up from the cursor when you type. I mean, obviously you want that. Obviously you need that. So why not get a terminal that uses Electron? What's the matter, Wes?
Well, there we go. That was easy.
Yeah, that was. And actually looks really,
it's
really
sharp.
good.
Yeah.
That looks really nice, actually.
I might just give it a try for a while. Why not?
The default font could be a little better.
Yeah, right.
I'm not gonna lie.
Wouldn't it be weird if there was multiples of these?
Is there? Is that a thing?
Upterm.
Oh, really? Oh no. Okay, what's the URL? I got an upterm. If I just Google it, will it? Oh yeah.
It's a GitHub repo.
A terminal for the 21st century.
Pretty nice scrolling.
Yeah, it does have nice scrolling. I agree. Oh, you know what? I kind of like this better, actually.
It's an IDE plus terminal thing.
Yeah,
Oh.
with legit syntax completion, which is kind of nice.
Mm-hmm.
I can't. Okay, I'll put a link to this in the show notes too. Wow. So not one but two Electron terminals. That's actually a thing, huh? I mean,
And it's in the AUR.
is nothing sacred? Is nothing sacred? The terminal, like on Windows, I can understand it because the default command prompt on Windows sucks so bad that they really need something over there. But oh man, I can't even with that. All right, well, so I guess there's one app pick for you.
2 for 1.
Hey, you're welcome.
Before you move on, Chris,
Yeah.
there's one big question about these Electron terminals.
Okay.
Do they have an option to give a black background and green text so you feel like you're in the Matrix?
Right, you've got to. Yeah, you've got to.
Yes.
Yeah, of course. That's like you don't even ship unless you've got that. You don't even ship. Okay, so
if you don't like it, you can just edit the CSS because it's a problem.
gosh, this has gone a horrible direction. I can't believe we're talking about editing the CSS of our terminal window. Okay, maybe I can redeem myself. This is a native application. How about that? It's called Mp4 Tools. And what I like about Mp4 Tools is that it's a collection of 2 applications that allow you to muck about with your Mp4 files without re-encoding them.
Nice.
So
That's always good.
Yeah, saves time. You don't lose quality. So Mp4 Tools consists of two different applications available for Linux. Mp4 Joiner is a free application that will join multiple Mp4 files into one without recoding and without any quality loss. So no retouching the file at all. And then that's Mp4 Joiner. And then, as you would expect, you've got Mp4 Splitter, which is a free application that allows you to split MP4 files into multiple MP4 files without having to re-encode them. I am going to be using this for some of our live stuff because I'm recording here in OBS on this Linux box, and then I'm going to take this MP4 file and I'll probably just do a little chop and drop, and then upload it up to YouTube and upload it to Scale Engine, and I'll be using AvidMux and Mp4 Tools to do that.
Nice.
So I thought, why not spread the lud? Why not spread the love? Mp4Joiner.org if you want to check that out. And yeah, AvidMux too. So there you go. We've got Electron terminals for you this week. We've got Mp4 Tools.
You can use your fun new tools in your fun new terminal.
There it is.
Oh, great.
I was just
devil.
waiting for that. Fucking A. I hate you. So now I can use Mp4 Joiner to join the file before GNOME crashed and after GNOME crashed. So when we're recording Linux Unplugged or whatever we're recording and GNOME crashes, like it literally just did while I'm talking about this, as if I did this on purpose, I can now use Mp4 Joiner to rejoin these files together so I can upload this live version that's been recorded locally. I mean, how perfect is that? Like I was literally about to explain why I got these Mp4 tools because GNOME 3 crashes on us so often when it just crashed on us. That's
proof is in the pudding.
That is amazing. That is amazing. Mp4Joiner.org. Enough said there. Go get your Electron apps. Go get your MP4s. I don't have any more to say about that. Linux Academy. Boy. If you want to go figure out why GNOME 3 crashes on you all the time, Linux Academy.
You need to get started somewhere, and this is probably the best place to start.
Yeah, you need to learn how to read the log, learn where all that stuff's on the file system, linuxacademy.com/unplugged. Go there, support the show, and sign up for a free 7-day trial. It's an advanced training platform that teaches you everything you need to know about Linux. You know, I was just going to say, Wes, you and I get a question, like a super generic question that comes into TechSnap that we really kind of identify with, and it's, how do I get started? Where do I get training? What do I need to do next to take my career somewhere in IT, or to get started in IT, or to go to the next level in IT? Before the show started today, you and I were having a conversation literally about, like, do we need to do like a dedicated segment in TechSnap addressing that question because it comes up so frequently.
Right, yeah, exactly. And it's hard to know. There's so many options, and there's tons of outdated information. It can be really confusing if you don't already know.
Yeah, and I think the other problem that the industry as a whole suffers from is all of these online training platforms that want to teach you everything, and Linux is just one of the things that they want to teach you. You know, they'll also teach you After Effects. They'll also, teach you how to do something on Windows, Active Directory if you want. Like, they're happy to teach you, like, all these stuff, like Photoshop. They don't care. But you do. You care. You want somebody who is dedicated to the topic that you need to learn about. You want the expert in that field. You want a company that is hiring full-time instructors that are going out there and taking the certification tests, learning the material, eating and breathing Linux, and then writing courseware about it. That's what you want, because you want to kick ass when you go out to take the test, when you want to get the next job, when you want to go somewhere in your career, or when you want to challenge yourself. linuxacademy.com/unplugged. You sign up for a free 7-day trial. You get to try out the platform. Hands-on, scenario-based labs that give you experience on real servers. Instructor mentoring is available if you get stuck, you need help. They have real human beings that can help you and answer questions. They have self-paced, in-depth video courses. And if you're busy, they got course schedulers to help you pick a time frame and stick to it. And if you're ready for certifications, they got stuff dedicated for that too. linuxacademy.com/unplugged. Go there, get a free 7-day trial, support the show, and take it to the next level. linuxacademy.com/unplugged. We've been thinking recently, with all the talk about Plasma, that we need to kind of expand our horizons a bit. Try different distros, try different desktop environments.
Break out of these blinders.
I never considered XFCE because nobody ever suggests it.
Not at all. Never.
But what I've been thinking about recently is Fluxbox and Debian. And that's where Slax comes in. Slax 9.4 was released this week, and they've got a couple of unique features that I think are worth talking about. First of all, distro that is built to be a live distro, first and foremost. You flash it to your USB media, and then you run from there. I think that's kind of a nice, I think at least it matters. If that's what you want, it matters that that's what the distro is doing, first and foremost. Slax also is doing a couple of other neat things, including ways to manage Wi-Fi and a couple other nice things. But there's something in here I find more fascinating. They are listing applications as installed. For example, say Chromium. They'll say Chromium is installed. There'll even be a link in your menu bar for a launcher. But when you click it, in the background, Slax is like mounting an image, a SquashFS file system, setting up paths, getting maybe even the latest binary downloaded depending on what it is, and then launching Chromium. Like it wasn't already in the main instance. It's just fascinating how they're doing this. But maybe even more interesting is the fact that the whole damn thing is based on Fluxbox, and it's a unique and interesting implementation. They've picked a background that is 100% ACES. This might be the best Linux desktop background I've ever seen. It's got a wood like picnic table in the foreground and then some fake artificial grass in the background, and it makes for a perfect presentation. You feel like there's a shelf, and the way the lighting works is it draws your eyes down to the bar. There's a nice transparent menu at the bottom. It looks very early Windows 7, minimal Windows 7, with a launcher that comes up that's very GNOME 3. You grid of icons, and there you'll see the web browser. If I click that, in the background, it's actually mounting the SquashFS file system and then launching Chromium. This is a simple, clean, very Windows-esque inspired. It's like a hybrid of Windows 7 and Windows 10. Theming and like effects-wise, and you get minimum stuff. And in a way that's very intentional on the Slax team. They figure for a lot of modern computers, you don't really need more than a web browser, a terminal, and a Debian base. So they figure flash that on a USB drive, boot it up. Despite its small size, Slax will provide you a nice graphical user interface. And by default, the two programs, your browser and your terminal. You got Debian under the hood. You get the entire ecosystem of Debian, tens of thousands of pre-built packages.
Yeah, apt just works like normal.
They have a 32-bit, a 64-bit, and then a really fun version that you gave a shot, couldn't get it working, and probably just have to spend a little more time monkeying with it. The Slax IPXE version.
Yeah, super handy. You can just, boot that in over the network and boot into Slax.
And what's nice is it boots it all in, it loads it all into RAM. So I was
exactly.
joking about RAM disk, but the whole damn thing is running out of a RAM disk booted off of your network. So it loads it over the network into a RAM disk and then runs it all locally out of your RAM.
It seems like a super nice, especially, if you're just doing everything in Chrome and a terminal on other machines, this is just a dumb workstation.
Well, and let me
Easy
posit you
maintenance.
this. Let's say you had your typical desktop OS. Maybe it's Windows 10. Maybe it's Plasma Neon, KDE Neon. But every now and then, you want a special environment for doing something private or something unique, or you just want, I can sit down at any computer on my network and I can boot into this environment. You could do that with the IPXE version. Do you see what I'm saying?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely.
Because if you got one of those BIOSes that supports choose boot device, on mine it's like F12. I hit F12, and then I get to choose my boot device, and one of my options is a Pixie boot server.
Totally.
I could choose that, and it would boot off of that, but otherwise it would boot off my local disk, and you could just have that available on your network. So that's another nice thing
Great for
about Slax.
just diagnosing things, fixing stuff, reformatting disks.
Yeah, and it's interesting too to check back in with Slax because we've talked about them in the past, but the last time we talked about them, those guys were basing that thing on Slackware.
Yeah, totally different.
Totally different approach. They were going for like a Slackware user-friendly desktop distro. They've pivoted, and now they are a live-only, modern, portable, Fluxbox-based Debian distro that's actually kind of nice.
It is kind of nice. I can't really put my finger on it, but it was playing with it today and yesterday. It's been an entirely pleasant activity.
Clean,
yeah,
fast.
I don't know if I'll be putting it on my systems permanently,
No.
but I'll think of it if I have a need for this niche.
If I ever had the time or need or reason to set up a network boot Linux distro where I could sit down in any one of these boxes and boot off the network and have this, I would do it hands down. Like this. I used to dream of setting that up back in the day. Like one super powerful computer and then lots of really thin, light, cheap remote systems that could boot into one core Debian master distro.
Nice.
It's pretty cool. Yeah. So the Slax team's got some good stuff here. I was coming in kind of being like, I've used Slax before. Nothing really new to see here. It's just another point release. No, they've really done some good stuff here, and they got more stuff in the pipeline too. They have, I guess, one big disclosure we should make is they want legacy boot when you're using this distro.
Yeah, very much sys Linux. I will also say over on their site they've got a great internals page that describes a whole bunch about how it's set up.
Oh,
and that's not something you see a lot. Maybe buried in a wiki somewhere, but it is a unique distro in how it's configured, and they're very open and transparent about it.
So to that end, that's where I was going. So they have a slax.org, that's slax.org for English, /next.php. And if you go to their next.php page, they have, here's what we just released, and they did this, the Slax 9.4 came out yesterday, 9.4.0. And then they already have Slax Next, where they talk about we're going to get EFI support working, we're going to get VirtualBox support working, we're going to change some settings in the terminal, and we have other things that are coming to the next version of Slax. So even though Slax 9.4.0 came out yesterday as we record this here show, they've already up on the website got what they're working on. And our number one complaint, EFI support, is already on their radar.
See, that's awesome.
It is. It is because it made it a little challenging to boot on some of my newer laptops. So it's really good to see them put that in there.
If they had snap packages baked right in, now that would also be very handy.
That would, particularly for a use case like this where you're booting it up fresh and you need to hit the ground and you just need to get running.
Yeah.
I was really impressed though. Came back to Slax, kind of expecting this haphazard reboot, this sort of duct tape and string to get everything working on Debian, and instead came away with one of the more unique desktop Linux experiences I've had in 2018.
Yeah, and it's easy to the 64-bit version is 260 meg, so I can also see myself just leaving this laying around somewhere in case I need it.
Totally. Minimeg, you bring up a good point of somewhere you'd like to see them go in the future.
Yeah, I would love to see for low specs Chromebooks on ARM CPUs. I would love to see ARM support.
That would be cool. That would be ARM support would be great. Something like this on the Raspberry Pi with Fluxbox.
Oh yeah.
I don't know why I expected Fluxbox to be animation free, sort of like no frills, but even in a software composite environment, the menus fade in and out nicely. The applications launch. The menu comes up nicely. Like everything's polished. Fluxbox, I think, doesn't get enough appreciation because that's got to be one of the damn best looking implementations I've seen in a long time. Which just tells me that if you just spend enough time with it, you can get it right.
Yeah, a handsome desktop.
It is indeed, and it's good to see it getting some coverage. Phoronix wrote about it as well. It's based on Debian stable, so if you're more of a Debian testing user, might not necessarily float your boat. But I sure liked it. And, if you're considering going to XFCE, why not give it a go? Check it out, Slax, at slax.org. We'll have a link in the show notes at linuxunplugged.com/242. And if you give it a go or something kind of like this, like did we just miss the mark a bit? Is there something like you're like, guys, you've just got to try this out. Let us know. Go to linuxunplugged.com/contact. Oh, that's right. At linuxunplugged.com/contact. We got a new contact form. And the way I've set it up now is it in big all caps with like brackets and special stuff that I've set up for filtering says somebody responding to Linux Unplugged has sent you an email, Chris. Don't miss this one, you dumb arse. So it's
nice.
yeah. So
you're taking it seriously.
Taking it very seriously. So linuxunplugged.com/contact. As seriously as I take email, because I effing hate email. But as seriously as I take any frickin' email.
I think that we should all make those businesses fail.
There you have it. I think, I guess with that, maybe we'll just leave it at. If you want to check out Slax 9.4 is the one you want if you want it based on Debian with all the goodies we just talked about. Mp4 Tools is the Mp4 Joiner we talked about, and Hyper is the terminal that we talked about. That's a whole bunch of, I just realized, like a whole bunch of names and picks that we just did. Kind of all smushed together. Mr. Payne, is there anything else we should leave people with before we get out of here?
I think we covered it today.
I know, I feel good. We got it all in there. All right, well, go get more Joe and me over at linuxactionnews.com. You can also go get more of just Joe and his friends at latenightlinux.com. More Wes Payne over at techsnap.systems. You can go get more of producer Michael on his YouTube channel at Tux Digital. And with all of that, I think we'll wrap it up. Of course, if you're watching live over at the JB Live site, the Ask Noah program is coming up. You're always welcome to join us on a Tuesday. Go to jupiterbroadcasting.com/calendar to get our live times, because it is a whole Linux celebration. It's Linux Tuesdays over on the jblive.tv live stream. We start with the Unplugged program pre-show, and then we keep on going to Ask Noah, and we'd love to have you there. You can follow me. I'm at Chris Elias. The network's at Jupiter Signal. He's at Wes Payne, linuxunplugged.com, and we'd love to have your feedback at linuxunplugged.com/contact and linuxunplugged.reddit.com. Thank you for joining us. See you back here next Tuesday.
See ya.
Welcome to BSD Unplugged, your weekly BSD talk show that's too busy getting actual work done to care about your silly display server. My name is Alan.
BSD guys. Those bastards. All right. So, what do you think we should call this one, guys? Because JBot took the day off. So, what do you think? We gotta come up with something good. Oh, I see Mr. Colonel Linux there in the chat room. Hello, Colonel Linux. So, with JBot taking the day off, it's all on us to be creative on our own. What do you think? What can we talk about? Slax? Something to do with Slax? Should we focus the episode on that? Slaxing off isn't bad. Slaxing off? I could go with slaxing off.
You know that you have not plugged Destination Linux, which producer Michael is now.
Oh, that's
full-time
right. I
member
forgot.
of.
That's new, right? So I'm not like that overdue, because that's kind of a new thing. Like only a couple of weeks, right? I got to mention that. He's not here, though. So, like, he got a free plug. He bailed before the end of the show, so his plug was free, I feel like. You know what I mean? Like, you got to be here. You got to be here for the whole show if you want your free plug. No.
Yeah, cut that out.
Yeah.